The budget process. 2 weeks ago today, the House passed the budget. It has a couple of things that it does. Well, let me step back. The budget in Washington, D.C. and or spending money is a little different than most of our normal lives. It's a two-step process. The budget has no appropriations in it, has very little detail as to what will be spent. It simply sets the total amount to be spent for the next fiscal year. That's the main piece of it. It only has teeth if the Senate will pass one as well. Ideally, the Senate would pass one, we would pass one at the same level. In other words, tell the American people, this is all we're going to spend in fiscal 2013. And then the appropriations process, the actual spending process takes, because the Constitution says nothing will get spent out of the Treasury except through an appropriation. So the budget doesn't really authorize any kind of spending. It just says it's a general person's agreement between the House and Senate. It never becomes a law per se. It just says we will work to spend nothing more than this amount, no more than that. Ideally, it would then divide that total amount up for each of the 12 in our House. In the House, it's 12 subcommittees. There's a committee on defense. There's a committee on agriculture, health and human services, veterans affairs. Each of them would get their share, their piece of that total. And then that subcommittee goes to work, and they can't spend any more than either. That would be going on in the House. A very exact same circumstance would be going on in the Senate. Bills would pass each House. They'd be different, of course. So they'd have to form a conference committee, and the conference committee would work out those details and move it forward. None of that's going to happen. The Senate is a second. That and a lot of others, but Reid and the 17 folks he's got running for re-election who really don't want to get caught up in all this because they're worried about their re-election. Not likely much of that will happen. I think in September we'll have to keep the government going. We'll do a CR, which means that we will just hold what we got. We'll spend at the same level for 2013 that we're spending for 2012 until Congress can actually do the appropriations for 2013 at some point in time. I don't know how long that CR will be for. It'll take us into calendar 2013 because I don't think anything's going to get done in the lame duck session. But all of that's conjecture, and it's worth exactly what you're paying for. But that's my thoughts as to kind of where we go. It'll be sometime next calendar year before we actually do those kinds of things. The other part of the budget, though, is the vision piece. In other words, 10-year document, here's where we think our country ought to go, here's what it ought to look like over that 10-year time frame, the vision issue. The President's budget, which he sent to us in February, was voted on 2 weeks ago yesterday. Bless you. And the President got shut out. He is 0 for 414. He did not give one vote for his budget, for his vision for our country. Now, same thing happened to him last year in the Senate. He went 0 for 97 last year. Which, you know, Pelosi didn't vote for it, Barney Frank, George Miller, Henry Waxman, none of those guys backed the President's play. We passed our budget. Our vision includes the issue of addressing Medicare and Medicare spending. If you look at the projections of the growth in Medicare, given the not only increasing number of people on Medicare, but also the increasing amount of money we spend per person on Medicare, that number grows to a point where it's unaffordable. Everyone agrees it gets to a point that's unaffordable. 2024, Medicare runs into a cash flow rate. And so we need to do something, certainly before then. If our proposal says this, if you are 55 and older, we've made the promises to ourselves, right? We've made a Medicare promise to you. We must keep that because you conducted your fiscal affairs, assuming that would be in place. And if you're 55 and older, you're not going to have a lot of time to make changes to your circumstances to reflect the change in Medicare. And so let's keep that promise. The only way we can keep that promise, though, is to renegotiate the promise for folks 54 and younger. They recognize, I think, that as a senior, they will be required to pay a greater share of their own health care costs than their parents and grandparents do. It's inequitable, it's unfair, whatever you want to say, I got it. But that's the fact. There's just no other way around it. So if we put in place a new plan, a renegotiated plan for those folks, It allows us to keep the promise to the folks that are currently on Medicare. So everybody has a Medicare promise. It's just not exactly the same. The promise that would be available for folks 54 and younger, once they turn old enough for qualify for Medicare, you'd be presented with an array of private sector health plans, just like Hillary and Ricky and Evan and I get to pick. You pick the one that's best for you. HMO, fee-for-service, whatever it is. You look at the deductibles, the co-pays, whatever it is, the premiums associated with it, and you'll pick. You'll pick. Then that premium is shared. You'll pay a part of that premium, and the federal taxpayer then will come in with a premium support, which is that new buzzword that we're using, premium support plan, to pay the rest of that premium. If you're really ill and the premium's higher, you're going to get more help from the federal taxpayer. If you're working poor, as an example, you're going to have more help than other folks. Not exactly means testing per se, but nevertheless reflecting people in different circumstances. That plan, scored by the CBO, is affordable over that different horizon. It allows us to keep the promise to folks 55 and older, clearly keep the promise for folks 54 and younger, so that everybody's Medicare promise gets kept. But if we don't act soon, that window of opportunity to protect the 55 and older crowd is shrinking, and we'll start moving that number up and taking less, this is going to move up. It's mechanical. There's nothing else we can do about it. So time is of the essence to get that done. Like I said, we've got a 12-year window before cash flow in Medicare gets jammed up. If we do nothing, which is what the other side is wanting to do, in 2024, everybody on benefits at that point in time will have a change. And it will not be a change for the better. It will not be a managed change like we can do now. We're reasonable adults. We're adults. I don't know if we're reasonable. We're adults, smart. We see the problem. We understand it. We ought to be able to, quote unquote, fix it. Our struggle is we can't get the other side to engage. I don't know if our plan for folks 54 and younger is the only way it'll work. I don't even know if it's the best way it'll work. I just know that it's a way that does work. What we're wanting is, Mr. President, put your plan on the table. How do you fix it? Is it different than ours? I'm open-minded to it. If you've got a better plan, great. Let's put that baby on the table. Why are you hiding it from us? If you don't like some aspects of our plan, great. Propose changes. Look at it seriously and listen. Get about the hard business of making this deal work. Instead, what you're hearing from the President, Harry Reid, and ARP and others that, oh my goodness, the Republican budget destroys Medicare, kills Medicare. Nothing could be further from the truth. They're being intentionally misleading and scaring seniors, and shame on them. So we got to get these guys to engage. The President, Harry Reid, and these others have taken on kind of the attitude that the fellow who fell off the 10-story building has. As he passed the 5th floor, he's saying, so far so good. So far so good. He had a coming wreck, and we've got a coming financial wreck. And we are in the so far so good category. And it's coming. It's not tomorrow, it's not next week, it's not next year, but it's coming. 2024 for Medicare, 2037 Social Security. Time is of the essence to make this happen and get this stuff done. And getting that side to engage is a struggle. So the budget, like I said, doesn't become law, sets spending levels, we'll work with that. But it also says, here's what we ought to do with tax policy, here's what we ought to do with Medicare, Medicaid, and other kinds of things. Not in the sense that it becomes a law, because those Medicare changes have got to be worked out in legislation separate and apart from the budget. The tax code has got to get changes, got to be worked out separate and apart. The Medicaid, so none of those vision statements in there, which are supported by projections, are suitable for enactment into law, because there's a lot of details to get worked out. We just need the other side to engage. So.